Hello, BookTube, and welcome to part 5 of Britain in Pictures, a series of essays that were started by William Collins Limited Publisher in 1941, and, well, William Collins of London, sorry, because they name changes throughout different periods, but they were sort of propaganda pieces to boister the morale during the war, and there's about 132 of them, and I'm going through the ones that I have here minus the duplicates because it appears I have lots of duplicates. And this one is English Novelist by Elizabeth Bowen. This is a nice one too. I think this is a fairly sought after one as well. I'm not sure it was mine. It's published in 1942 by the looks of it. It looks like it's the first. It may be said with truth that the panorama of everyday English life unfolds itself to the best advantage not in the histories but in the novels of our people. The great characters of fiction are often nearer our hearts and are more deeply impressed on our memories than the men and women of history. Certainly the English novel is one of the outstanding glories of world literature, and its fine flowering is essentially a very special contribution of our native genius. In this book, Miss Elizabeth Bowen herself, a distinguished novelist, gives a valued and vivid survey of the principal English novelists and their work from John Lyell to Virginia Woolf. A little more foxing on these pages, but I do have a couple of these. Joseph Andrews and Mr. Adams with Fanny at the Wayside Inn. An illustration to Joseph Andrews by Henry Fielding. Mr. Burchell rescuing Olivia Primrose, an illustration from Vicar of Wakefield by Oliver Goldsmith. Gypsy telling the fortunes of Pamela and Mrs. Jukes, an illustration to Pamela by Samuel Richardson, oil painting attributed to J.F. Nollekins after engraving by H.F. Gravlock. An interesting one. Yorick, the monk and Madame L. in the inn courtyard at Calais, watercolor by Adam Black, an illustration to Sentimental Journey by Lawrence Stern. Tobias Smollett. Frontispiece to Fanny Burney's Evelina, engraving by Mortimer from the edition of 1791. Sir Walter Scott, 1771 to 1832, oil painting by Sir Thomas Lawrence. Looking very serious there. William Makepeace Thackeray, 1811 to 1863, oil painting by John Gilbert. Let's see, who else do they show? Thomas Hardy, 1840 to 1928, oil painting by Angus John. He's got the look on his face like many of his characters in his books after what they've gone through. The visit to the mad woman after the interrupted marriage. Illustration to Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. Watercolor by Frederick Walker. Looks like it's quite neat. Let's see. I think that's about it for that one. Next one is Islands Round Britain by R.M. Lockley. They really do. It really does preserve the cover, but there is flaking along. Sorry, you couldn't see that flaking along the spine. 1946. R.M. Lockley, author and farmer, has written mostly of islands and birds, and among his best-known books are Island Days, I Know an Island, and Sharewaters. In this book, Mr. Lockley has written of the islands lying off the coast of the British Isles. Many of these he knows from first-hand experience. He knows them as a serious ornithologist who has studied the seabirds and the spring and autumn migrations from many of the island bird stations. He has looked at them with the practical eye of a working farmer, and he has sailed among them for pleasure. Islands, for the most of us, have a fascination which never fades in the wonderful variety of the character, history, and legends, and above all, the beauty of our islands is most admirably described in this book by Mr. Lockley himself. Writes, quote, "There is something about a small island that satisfies the heart of man," end of quote. The Isle of Anglesey, the Isle of Man, and the Isle of Wight, colored engraving of 3 maps by John Blue, 1650. 1650? Yeah, 1650. Shanklin, Isle of Wight, watercolor by Pere de Wint, 1784 to 1849. I bet there's houses all along there now. Holy Island Cathedral, drawing by J.M.W. Turner, engraved by C. Turner, 1808. St. Mary Sicily Isles, and this will be on the right, watercolor by J. Steckley, and St. Michael's Mount, engraving 1804. So that's St. Michael's Mount. And that's the other one. Holy Island, watercolor by John Varley, 1778 to 1842. General view of Guernsey from Port George, watercolor by R.P. Leach, circa 1850. That, I'm sure, has definitely changed. That landscape is going to look absolutely different. It would be sort of horrifying in many ways. Rope bridge near the lighthouse Holyhead, sorry. Is it Holyhead? Holyhead or Holyhead? I'm sure I've heard something called, or a place called Holyhead. Anyway, somebody will correct me in the comments. Drawn and engraved by William Daniel, 1813. Yeah, I don't think you'd catch me on that thing. Puffin Island, Anglesey, drawn and engraved by William Daniel, again, 1813. There's a few puffins there. That looks it. A view of the bay at Pier of Douglas, Isle of Man, colored engraving by James J. Berman. St. Helier, Jersey, watercolor by J. Young. The Isle of Staffa, watercolor by Copley Fielding, 1787 to 1855. Score Eigg, Isle of Eigg, color antiquate by William Daniel, from Richard Anton's The Voyage Round Great Britain, 1813. Okay, and we go on to horses of Britain. Lady Whitworth. I don't think I've showed the back of any of these. That's basically how the back is. This was published in 1944. In a highly mechanized age, we can boast that we are still a nation of horse lovers, and horse riding increased tremendously in popularity in the years before the war. Horse breeding is an important and valuable national industry, and the whole world now turns to these islands for the best horses. As Lady Wentworth writes, quote, "It is England that has developed the world's greatest speed, wonder, and racing throughout. Scotland initiated the largest and purest draft breed of the north. The Shetland Isles produce the smallest equine species, the delightful miniatures that look like toys." Do they? I never thought they looked like toys, but anyway. To Wales, we owe the world's prettiest trotting ponies. Ireland, famed for its hunters, is now the site of the national stud. To trace the development of our leading breeds throughout the centuries is Lady Wentworth's object. It is a splendid record, and as she tells it, an absorbing story. An acknowledged authority on the subject, Lady Wentworth has written an extremely interesting and lively book that should be widely welcomed. It's interesting. Many of the other ones that I read, and they talk about essay, now they're calling these books as later goes on. But they're not any bigger. They're still 40 pages long, give or take. Let's get some colored ones here. Thoroughbreds in a Landscape oil painting by George Stubbs, 1724 to 1826. Yeah, that name's familiar. Stubbs for animals and horses. Famous Arabian stallion, sale of the Hamadani, Simmers strained by Champion Mesod. I'm not even trying to continue reading this. It's like a different language. Watercolor by Lady Anne Blunt. Sorry, everybody. I just can't work that out. My tongue and brain won't do it. Charles II's Royal Mare, oil painting by Jane Sartorius Sr., circa 1685. Huh. I never realized there were two of those artists. I'm assuming if he's the senior that there's a junior that may or may not have been an artist. The Hunter and the Hack, a typical cob, oil painting by John Firmly, 1782 to 1860. Brighton Coach, 19th century colored antiquariate by J.W. Sayers. And there's a photograph here. Modern Hackney team, Judge Moore and his famous team of bays. I like that. Come on, turn the page. Hyde Park Corner, colored engraving after J. Pollard, 1797 to circa 1859. Yeah, or 18, yeah, I guess they didn't know when he died. At least when this was printed. Fox hunting. Color antiquariate by R.G. Reeve by after D. Wolstenholme, 1806. Okay, next is English Glass by W.P. Honey. This one is in pretty good shape. This is Spine 99. Again, I'll show you the back again. They're just plain backs. And there's a number. It must have been from the same owner. It looks like they... doesn't look like a stamp. I'm not sure what that... maybe it was a stamp. It's just really weird. There's discoloration. And it's in many of them. This was published 1946. Glass, originally brought to England by the Romans, has a long tradition in this country, and the author traces the story of England's contribution to the art of glassmaking up to our own day and finds in the excellence of the best glass work comparable to the finest products of earlier periods. Mr. W.P. Honey is the keeper of the Department of Ceramics at the Victoria and Albert Museum, which means that he has under his care, among other things, the finest collection of glass in the country. He has long been an expert in the subject and has never ceased to be an enthusiast. His writing, brilliantly informed, is concise and lively, as one would expect from the author of more than unusually interesting autobiography. Author of a more than unusual interesting autobiography, and of books as diverse and original as The Gardening Heiresses. I think that's what that is. It's sort of blotted out a bit. Science and the Creative Arts. Interior of the glass house, woodcut from Apsley pellets. Curiosities of Glassmaking, 1849. That's quite interesting. Let's see if it's hard to... I can't see it when I do this at times, so hopefully that's in frame. A nail seed jug, late 18th or early 19th century. Bristol white glass enameled painted vase, mid-18th century. This is neat. Glassmaker's tools, engraving from Houdeker de Blancourt's The Art of Glass, 1699. Photographs now. Wine glass painted by William Blauby, mid-18th century. The glass has been painted, not... No, that's a photograph. That's got to be a photograph. Is it? No, yeah, it's the wine glass that's painted. And there's another photograph. Country market jugs, late 18th or early 19th century. Couple more. Early Victorian glass fountain with birds. Okay, and where are we at there now? That's 4, 5. British weather. Stephen Bone. Okay, British weather. Never very good. And there's an inscription here, but I can't read it. It's faded. See, I think ink fades. Pencil doesn't really fade. This was published 46. Stephen Bone is known primarily as an artist. He is a member of the New English Art Club and was in 1943 appointed an official war artist attached to the Navy. But in addition, he is a writer and has published a guide to the west coast of Scotland, Albion, An Artist's Britain, 1939, and also children's books. Mr. Bone's chief interest outside painting and writing is geography. His study of this subject and his knowledge of this country and its people are used in the present book to give not a technical meteorological analysis of our climate, but a living study of its general character and its effect on our landscape, ourselves, and our occupations. Woeful news from Wales, great flood in Monmouthshire, 1607. Rainbow, detail from the Blind Girl, oil painted by Sir John Everett Milius, 1856. Interesting. Photograph, rainy day at Bisham, Berkshire. Oh no, it says watercolor. I thought it was a photograph by Frederick Walker, 1840 to 1875. Monday morning, Polarin, Cornwall, 1932, watercolor by H.G. Copsey. In black and white, though, obviously. Sudden Storm, watercolor by Paul Nash, 1918. I was just going to say, isn't Paul Nash a poet? And then all of a sudden my brain finally kicks in and goes, no, Ogden Nash. Twilight, Old Battersea Bridge, London, oil painting by J. A. McNeill Whistler, 1876 to 1877. Oh, I wish that was in color. I'm sure that would be fabulous in color. Flooded Farmland, oil painting by James Holland, 1936. Let's see, let's just do one more here. How interesting can these be? Valley Mist, oil painting by Stephen Bone, November 1943. The author, okay, yeah, that's kind of cool. I just lost it now. That's done by the author. I like that one. Okay, that's it for episode 5, I think it is. Yeah, episode 5. I'll see you next time, BookTube.